I'm Sadhvi Anubhuti, and I'm the co-producer of Surviving Sex Trafficking.
I'm Sadhvi Siddhali, and I'm the co-producer of Surviving Sex Trafficking.
I'm Ludmila Golovine. I'm CEO of MasterWord Services, and MasterWord is honored to be the executive producer of Surviving Sex Trafficking. So, ladies, tell me, where did the idea about the movie come from? How did this happen?
So, Surviving Sex Trafficking is our second film, and we learned after producing our first film, Stopping Traffic, that we needed to dive deeper into the stories of survivors and examine their journey of healing post-trafficking.
You filmed it around the world. How did you choose the locations?
Well, we wanted to explore different countries and understand what's happening not only in the US but abroad. And we actually went on a trip with a group of advocates and activists around the world. And the group decided to go to a few places. We went to Hungary, we went to Philippines, Ethiopia, India, and here in the US. So we just wanted to learn more about trafficking in those countries.
And did you interview survivors, or did you just go on the streets and meet people? How did that happen?
It was a combination of both. Before we traveled, we reached out to shelters and spoke with the directors, letting them know our pure intention for the film. And so when we went to the country, not only did we visit the shelter, we met with survivors, we taught them yoga and meditation classes, and we heard their stories, of course. And then we also spent some time, depending on the country and situation, also on the streets and seeing trafficking happen firsthand.
Mm-hmm.
So it was your first time in a way of a global tour on the ground, experiencing sex trafficking firsthand and talking to survivors firsthand globally. Were you impacted personally during this trip?
Absolutely. We for the first film, the first project, we did go to a few other countries. But for this trip, it was a little bit more unique in the sense that we were able to speak more with the survivors and learn more about their stories and why they end up in such situations of trafficking. So absolutely, it's quite devastating to find out that people are being enslaved in these countries and the why. And every country is different. So, for example, in Ethiopia, we found out that it's the poverty level. It's so extreme that a lot of women get trafficked because of they have to survive somehow, and that is kind of like their means to survive in the world. And the things that they have to go through, the situations, the violence that they go through, it's quite painful. But every place is different.
You also filmed in the US.
Mm-hmm.
Do the survivors in the US and do the survivors in Ethiopia and India, do they have something in common, or is it different in every country?
It's different in every country. The vulnerability, why they went into it, were they groomed, were they recruited, from through a boyfriend pimp? Was it their situation? Were they kidnapped? Like in one case, a survivor we featured in our film. But the common denominator that they all experience is pain. No one ever wants to go through that kind of experience, and also the deep desire to get out, but then they don't know how. So sometimes it might take a terrible situation. Sometimes it takes someone reaching out to help them. You just never know. So I'd say common denominators, pain and the wish to get out because it's too much.
So we all can think that all this happens somewhere else. How much does it happen here in our backyard?
It's so often here in Houston, Miami, Los Angeles, everywhere, even in the countryside, you will find some form of human trafficking, whether it's labor trafficking, sex trafficking, forced prostitution. It happens everywhere. And the scary part is it's happening in your neighbors' homes potentially. It's really in our neighborhoods. And they're so discreet, they're so smart about it, they're so cunning, they know how to hide things. So it's not only in massage parlors or at the brothels or the Super Bowl. It's happening daily. People coming in and out of neighbors' homes, and they're selling their children, or they're selling girls or boys that they've picked up or kidnapped. That's why it's so important to raise awareness So this way people can keep their eyes open.
So does it only happen to a certain demographic? Or, is it foreign people? Is it quote unquote kidnapped people? Or how do you see it happening here in our backyard? Does it affect all of us, all demographics? What do you see?
It happens all across, and that is the problem, is that we think that there is a certain profile of a trafficker or a profile of a victim, and that's not the case. It can definitely affect anybody from any social economic group. It can happen in any ethnic group. It can happen anywhere, and that is the reality. Is that's why we need to learn more about what is human trafficking, so that we can actually identify it. So it can happen to a neighbor next door, and just kind of recognizing what are the signs, so that we can help those people and be that voice or be that person to help them get out of that situation.
So it's hidden in plain sight, and we may be coming across survivors or victims of human trafficking anytime we go to a grocery store or to a movie theater or just passing them in the street. What is the difference between human trafficking and sex trafficking?
Well, human trafficking is usually associated with smuggling. And that's, maybe bringing people across the border, selling them, you're smuggling a group of people. But human trafficking is forced labor, coercion, fraud. There's so many degrees in their mind to really force them to work. And so sex trafficking is part of human trafficking. So there's like labor trafficking, there's organ trafficking, and then there's sex trafficking. So they are forced to perform sexual acts to profit the pimps and the traffickers and madams.
And what's organ trafficking?
Organ trafficking is maybe a family is in desperate need of a kidney, and they will pay somebody for that kidney, and then that trafficker will get a kidney or whatever organ from somewhere else. So they might kill the person, take the organ, and then provide it for money.
That's horrible.
One story I came across when doing a screening at Oklahoma University, I met an executive director of a Nepal shelter, and she was saying that the girl was trafficked for her skin, and they were using it for cosmetics. And then after she had been skinned and basically peeled and gone through that torture, then they put her through sex trafficking. So it's so horrendous, it's so horrific, and really you think being in this work for several years, you've heard it all, but it's like, no, like there are evil people out there, and that's why, again, we need to raise more awareness so we can reduce the pain and suffering these girls and boys are going through because they're human.
So we're hearing in schools that, we no longer have slavery since 1860s and all of these things, but human trafficking, is it just another fancy word to say slavery?
It is. Human trafficking is modern day slavery, and it is slavery. So anytime you have a person under your control and you're taking advantage of them or exploiting them in some way, is slavery, and you're profiting from them. You are seeing a human being as a product, as something that's almost disposable, and just being fully exploited for, like she said, either for labor or for sexual content.
So we're supposed not to have slavery, right? But slavery looks like it's alive and well and even more than and bigger than before. Why doesn't it just stop? Why can't we just stop it? Why is it such a big problem globally? What feeds it?
Desires, human desires. People can't keep their desires in check, and there's a demand for it. So traffickers, if there's no demand for it, so the traffickers will find another way to make money. But the people desire the bodies. They objectify women, boys, and so that's what they want. And for example, a survivor in our film, she was 17, 18 years old at the time, but she looked like she was 12, 13. And these men liked, they're more like a pedophile. So they wanted that type of experience. They wanted a young looking girl. And so, how do we reach them? How do we, remove these desires from them. But we have to look at our world. There's so much entertainment, body sells it like products and so forth. So we have to change as a society to really knock this thing out. But how many people are willing to change so deeply within themselves? And so I feel there's so many roots to all of this. There's so many dimensions. There's mental health issues. But so as long as there's a demand, there will always be a supply.
Why don't they just leave? Today we have telephones, we have transportation, you can get on a bus, you can walk somewhere else. Why don't they just leave?
I think that's an important aspect that people need to understand about human trafficking, and it is the grooming process. So the trafficker will break people down. They will convince them that what they're doing is the right thing to do. There is threats that if they leave, they're going to kill them, that they will kill their family members, or that they will do something that will have very bad consequences. And so there is violence, there is physical, mental, emotional abuse. And so these are invisible chains that people, there is not a specific chains holding them, but those are the invisible chains that are keeping people in that situation.
Today, when we hear about the raids on sex trafficking rings or the police raids, what is going on? Are the girls are the ones, or the victims are the ones who are being arrested? And what's going on? Who is the first one to get arrested?
It depends on the situation, what's happening with a raid. With the girls, because they are the ones that say out on the street, or somebody reports, like, let's say prostitution, so it's the girl and the trafficker is not in the same room. They're maybe in a car a couple blocks away, and they're just keeping tabs on them. Because of the grooming process, the victims will protect their traffickers, and we've even seen some victims really do a campaign just to protect their trafficker from being sentenced. So the girls, there's a lack of education, I feel, in law enforcement, because that's what they know. Prostitution is illegal, so then they go arrest her. But I feel that if they're more educated, then they're going to look at the situation like, why is this happening? Is there someone behind it? And if they start to ask these questions, then they might end up discovering something more behind this broken girl.
I've heard recently that, I believe here in Texas we've changed, and there are now some laws where actually the Johns get prosecuted.
Mm-hmm.
And do we want to see more of that? Is Houston unique and just one of the very few places, or do we want to see this change nationwide?
Absolutely. I mean, I think Houston is definitely making huge progress to fight human trafficking. They've changed legislation, they have new laws taking place, and you're correct. I think Houston has become one of the main or first cities to actually punish and go after the Johns. And absolutely, if we have no demand, so there is no supply. So we have to look at every aspect of human trafficking. And if we're only addressing the survivors or the victims, then we're missing a big part of it. So if we can go after, the Johns, then automatically that's going to reduce the demand for it. So that's going to help a lot.
What about labor trafficking? What holds the people? So what drives, you said the sex trafficking is driven by desire. What is labor trafficking driven for? And is it then individuals, or is it only corporations, or where is that hidden?
They're seeking profits, so they need that human body to give them those profits. So, for example, in my hometown in LA, there was a bakery owner, and she took their passports, her employees' passports, and she was having them work or forcing them to work for free, providing very little, and there's no way to escape because she was holding on to their passport. So they come in with this idea of an opportunity, like, oh, I'm going to make some money. But then the business owner, they take the passports and they can't leave. They can't do anything. And until somebody reported it or they found their way, then they were able to escape. And, the bakery owner was prosecuted. So It's everything's driven for money. These traffickers, whether it's for labor, for organ trafficking, or sex trafficking, the traffickers just want money. They want money, 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 and so they will find whatever way. If it's not sex trafficking, if it's not something else, they're unfortunately very creative, and they will find their way to make money. So unfortunately, they're using human bodies for that.
So why watch the movie? Why would you tell people who listen to this right now, why watch the movie?
So, our goal with this film is for people to learn more about the survivors. People don't realize that very, very few people actually survive human trafficking, and specifically sex trafficking. It is said that only 1% of the victims come back home to tell their story. And we want to highlight those few stories so this way people understand. People think it's okay, they survived human trafficking and they've been rescued, and that's great. Now they have their freedom, but that's not the case. Their journey has just begun. Now they've removed those chains, but now they have to work on all the trauma that they're carrying, they're holding on to, all the pain that they experienced. So it's a lot that they have to go through post trafficking. So we want to highlight those stories. We want to share what they've gone through for people to understand and to realize how much help these beautiful souls need. And if we don't come together as a society, who's going to help them? Who's going to be there for them? So we want people to get inspired by them. And they are amazing people. Through their stories of survival, we all can learn so much of human resilience and human nature and how much we can get through them.
So you mentioned a number and it kind of sent chills through me. You said 1%. That means 99% don't.
Correct.
What's our call for action? And how can somebody as an individual, one person, right? I feel maybe there's nothing I can do. So what's our call for action? What can one person who watched this movie do?
We were, because of our first film and the success of it, we ended up creating our nonprofit organization called Stopping Traffic. And this is our call to action for people to go to our website. If they want to help survivors, if they want to help shelters, they can donate. And we're providing educational scholarships, medical scholarships, helping with dental assistance, because these are the basic needs that survivors need help with. Nonprofits need resources. We need to continue raising awareness, but we also need to help these individual souls that are carrying so much pain. So imagine helping them get through school or through college, getting them their GED. For example, a girl in the film, a survivor, she was punched in the face while working on the streets, and we were able to fundraise to help her get a new set of teeth so this way she can smile, and because of that she's so much more confident. So we can all help in many ways. Everybody has different skill sets, and that's why we're so grateful to MasterWord coming on as an executive producer to our film, being a partner, because what's MasterWord, right? You provide translation services, and you're helping by providing subtitles in so many languages. So this way we can raise awareness not only in the United States, but around the world. And this is where we need to reach these countries, because they're not aware, or it's so taboo that they don't talk about it. But everybody watches the TV, everybody goes to the theater, everybody can go to Netflix or some kind of online platform to educate themselves. And we're so grateful to MasterWord for contributing all of this to help us raise awareness, and we're doing this together.
Well, thank you. So what I'm hearing, raise awareness, and what I'm hearing, get involved by going to your website and contributing to the nonprofit that then in turn helps the survivors in so many different ways. And can people also learn on your website about how to identify the signs of human trafficking? How do I figure it out, or where do you go to find out what are the signs? What am I missing?
Sure, there's so many organizations out there, but our website is stoppingtraffic.org and we provide basic information. But there's so many nonprofits out there that provide resources and even flyers that you can print out and post everywhere. The main thing is if you can research even a nonprofit to volunteer at, to get involved with, because there's all these organizations need your help. So maybe someone's a graphic designer, maybe somebody's into video, maybe somebody is a doctor and they want to donate their services. So connecting with their local nonprofit is very, very important.
So what is again the website and the name of the movie?
So the movie is Surviving Sex Trafficking and the nonprofit's name is Stopping Traffic. So for more information, you can visit stoppingtraffic.org or survivingsextraffickingfilm.com.
And on behalf of our viewers and on behalf of our team, I want to thank you for the many years of work and for everything you've done to help the survivors and raise awareness.
Thank you, Mila.
Thank you, Mila. We're so grateful to you and your entire team. Thank you so much.
Thank you for being here today.
And I do want to add, I know this is maybe can be filled in, but Mila, we definitely appreciate you for being the first person to come on board for our Surviving Sex Trafficking film. I remember we were presenting the idea to a group in Houston, and you were the first person to step up and believe in us. And we know that this cause is very close to your heart, and you're involved in several nonprofits, and you're always on the go. You have your amazing work that you're already doing with MasterWord Services, but then you have your big heart that's so dedicated to this cause. And I know, you doing presentations all over the world, and you're raising awareness and helping so many. So on behalf of the rest of the world, thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.